Alrighty, it's time for another patron-only Q&A. I've got a bunch of questions here on this, and I hope to have answers here in this, and when we're done with all that, maybe the answers will be out there, and they'll make some sense. I have a suspicion sometimes my answers don't make sense, but, you know, we do our best, and thanks for the questions. First one's from Jim Battle. Ben, have you ever recorded a cover song, or is your creative output so prodigious that you don't ever feel the need to cover a song? Does BLG or Bentley ever play cover songs on the road? And if so, what is your process for both honoring the original song while still saying something new? Well, I haven't done covers in a really long time, but we used to do them in Bentley. We did a cover of Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin. We've done Closer by 9 Inch Nails, Creep by Radiohead. We did Sunshine, which actually made it to an album, You Are My Sunshine. And I like doing covers sort of like as like an 8 out of 10 feeling. You know, it's really nice and a good use of time, but like it's not my 10 out of 10. And as far as like my bands go, I'm really shooting for that 10 out of 10, which is just when I'm digging into some fresh spaces in myself, but you can definitely do that through someone else's work. I think that, you know, you have two types of successful covers. One where you honor the original so amazingly well that it's like extending its life in some way. And then there's the one where you really make it your own. But when it's kind of in between those two, or it's like different from the original but not really like necessarily grabbing anyone in a new way, that tends to, I think, feel more like a fun exercise than like a statement. And I'm really like, I feel like way more excited about pursuing like originals where if the song isn't great and the statement fails, it's still such a like true piece of my my body of work that leads to like my personal reflections on my own identity. Whereas if I fail at doing a cover well, it was sort of just a fun thing to do, but there really isn't like a ton that I get out of it besides, you know, the fun, which you know, I love fun. But when we covered Sunshine, the reason we put it on the album was because it really was a transformative cover. And so if you look up Bentley Shiny Eyed Babies Sunshine, which is on Spotify and all those platforms, you'll hear, you know, my ideal kind of cover vibe. This next one's from Aman. What are your thoughts about music and philosophy? Do you think music without lyrics can be political? Well, I think that to some extent everything is political if politics affect your life, because basically your art is a response in many ways. No matter if you're trying to make it so or not, it's kind of automatically a response to everything in your life, every influence. And that's about all I can say about it, is that it is a response to that. What the response is of course much harder to be sure about. It's mushy, but it's political, and also its message is going to change depending on who hears it and what they think. So it's hard to be like, I want to make a statement about Trump or something with instrumental music without like any like samples of someone talking or anything like that. But it is possible to make a greater statement about like the shape of reality and how politics should evolve to meet that shape. So I'm just sort of figuring it out as I talk. But music and philosophy are also intrinsically connected, not just politics, but you know, if philosophy is designed to explore thought and how it intersects with reality, I'd say like how music makes you feel and affects your thoughts and is influenced by reality and then influences reality, makes it, really on the same path of searching and discovery. And that's what we do here in these Instagram Q&As. Patreon Q&As. I hope I've been saying that right. Patreon Q&As. What we do is we answer the questions. You guys ask good questions, and I answer them as thoroughly as possible, even if I don't know what I'm talking about. Next one's from Jack Turpit. Hi Ben, hope you're doing well. I'm a massive fan of your composition in the 5 Composers 1 Theme Orchestra video, the one that starts with just the piano and then grows to the whole orchestra. I love listening to it because it's so evocative that I feel like I can see the scene that it would belong to in like a noir movie or a Cowboy Bebop episode, which is what I was thinking, or something. When you approach composition, are you trying to evoke a certain feeling from the get-go, or is it more like playing around until you find something that resonates? P.S. If you haven't heard them already, maybe check out New Zealand's greatest export, the musical comedy duo Flight of the Conchords. I've been listening to them a lot lately and they cheer me up in these times. Yeah, Flight of the Conchords is hilarious. Definitely seen all the episodes of their show, listen to their music. So sometimes in music we're trying to evoke a feeling by saying this is the feeling, this is the place. But other times I think the music evokes us. Like a lot of the time I feel like the music is playing me. Because I'll start just being like, well, here's the orchestra, I'm writing this thing for 5 composers and there's an orchestra and I have 1 minute, and I'll start writing something or I'll start singing something, and then before you know it, I've got, oh, this is like a Cowboy Bebop vibe, and then I'm leaning into that. So there's definitely a point with that piece where I realized I was creating a Cowboy Bebop atmosphere, and I was like trying to lean into that 100,000%. So it's never just one or the other. It's usually a mix, but it's very uncommon to have a whole idea, start to finish in your head, and then be like, I'm translating it to music, and then bam, there it is, exactly what I thought. That doesn't even seem exciting. Like, I love being surprised along the way with new things I didn't even think of before. And the Polar. I am not 100% sure how to phrase my question, so sorry if this is confusing. Well, my answers are confusing, I think. I listen to a lot of interesting music, such as projects like You're In, as well as Frank Zappa, Primus, Thank You Scientists, Rush, etc. However, when I'm writing music, I struggle to make music similar to what I listen to. I get a cool riff or strange chord progression that I love, but can never figure out how to turn it into a song. I've been doing the singer-songwriter thing a while and have been happy previously, but after a few albums of that, I'm ready for something more exciting, and I struggle composing full pieces on that level. It's like I can make individual parts, but can never decide on how to put them together to complete the puzzle. Any advice? Well, all of those bands, Frank Zappa, Thank You Scientists, my stuff, that have, some intricacies in the arrangement, it always sounds like there's, well, I should speak for my own music, it always sounds like there's more stuff going on than there is. You can create the feeling to the listener that things are very intricate with only a few actual parts if they're arranged in a way where each individual part has its own space and its own role in like a bigger engine. Like if you think of it as parts in an engine, you can create a lot of motion and a lot of activity if everything is working towards a certain aim. If everything is playing in unison, for instance, it doesn't feel like parts in an engine. It feels like here's a clear color. But if you have one part that's like ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, which is like a 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, and another part that's like doom, which is like a big 2 2 1 2. The two will interact against each other, and even though you're just hearing 2 parts, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot of stuff. And I think that like my favorite moments in Thank You Scientist and my favorite moments in my music and like that involve intricate stuff are often supported by something very simple. There's usually actually some very simple spinal cord to the idea, which will be like maybe a backbeat, like dun, ka, dun, ka. So if you even take your singer-songwriter skills that you already have, and you just like set a limit, like I'm not going to have any more than 6 things happening at once, but each of these things is going to be like in its own space, separate from the rest, and it's going to have a defined rhythmic characteristic. You end up making like really, I think, progressive sounding sections with that. And often those things aren't easy to write by playing and singing. It helps to use notation for that style. When you're just singing and playing, you're limited to your muscle memory and your ability to play polyrhythms and stuff. If you want to get polyrhythms in there, you have to be playing them, and that's not really ideal. Like, to be limited to what you can play when you're writing that sort of music. So I would say, like, the key to making those songs really good, those complicated progressive songs, is to write the vocals by actually singing. Don't notate the vocals in advance. I've never found that to be great. I feel like when you write this singing by singing, you end up with better singing parts. But everything else, if you can start notating, I think notation's super helpful for giving lots of little parts different space. Working in the DAW is great. Working with a MIDI roll is great. Notation is the way that I like to do that sort of style. And yeah, I would say just don't try to like reinvent the wheel with your sound. Just start adding a couple elements that weren't there before, or just change the process by using maybe more notation. The next question, Noah Atchley asks, "Hi Ben, thanks for answering my question last time. I appreciate the encouragement. Non-serious questions. What is your favorite musical memory? If it's too hard to pick just one, what is your first musical memory? Is it from the singing man in your synagogue that you've talked about? What's the story behind your favorite t-shirt? Do you have a favorite song to perform with bent knee?" Let's see. So, my favorite musical memory, well, I'll tell you one really cool one. I have a piece called Pulse of a Nation, and that was like my first good thing I wrote, in my opinion. Like, that was the first piece of music I wrote that wasn't just about like, oh, I've studied bluegrass and I've studied metal and I've studied different styles, and now I'm going to put them together because I want to demonstrate how many styles I know. Like, that was kind of how I was writing music before. Or I was writing emotional music that wasn't really like conveying the emotion. It was too preoccupied with like the guitar being impressive. But like Pulse of a Nation was a good piece, and when you play it live, it's really good. And I played that piece live with my bandmates in college in 2009. We played it for the first time in a small bar, and it's such an epic, huge piece, and it's sprawling, and it's 40 minutes. It's just one piece of music, and no one I knew back then was doing 40-minute pieces. They would write songs, but I wrote this 40-minute piece, and my bandmates were awesome, and they learned the whole thing, and they added a lot to it, and we played. And Jessica, who's now, I've been with her for like 11 years, and we're married and everything. I liked her, and she seemed a little bit like scared of me because, she had just started college. She was 18 and I was 20. I'd been in school for like 2 years already, and so, she was just like figuring out, whoa, the world. And I was like, oh, I like you, and, we were going to hockey games and like going on dates, but she was like, this guy he's 20. I just broke up with my boyfriend. I just got here from high school. And anyway, I played that show, and my parents flew up to see that show in the small bar, which, that was really nice. And we played Pulse of a Nation, and that kind of won Jessica over. At least she saw something in me that was not scary, because I really had bared my soul in that, and I don't know, it seemed to really help. And my mom was there, and I was dancing with my mom, and Jessica thought that was cute. So that was a great memory, because it really helped with our relationship, and it was also the most epic concert I'd ever played at that point. And it's still probably one of the most epic musical experiences I've had. What's my first musical memory? Probably when we were... my mom played a little guitar and would sing, and I think that would probably... I guess my first musical memory is breaking one of her guitars, now that I think of it. So I was standing on the guitar and jumping on it, and she was like, "No, Ben!" We still have that guitar in the basement, it's broken. And that was actually a very musical thing to do. So that would have probably been my first musical activity. What's the story behind your favorite t-shirt? Well, I can't think of a favorite t-shirt, but I used to make Ben Levin Group merch by hand. I used to take blank t-shirts and cover them in paint, and that was the merch. No logo or anything, just covered in paint. And I almost got kicked out of my college dorm because I got paint all over the walls. And also, I was there's a terrible mess in there. And I once bought 70, or maybe it was 170 blank shirts to paint for, in bulk, so I could sell this shirt or give it away or whatever. And I was painting them, and the color wasn't really coming through right, because I got green shirts, and I thought the fabric paint would show up on them, but it really wasn't looking good. So instead of using them for merch, I just wore the same shirt. They were all the same. I wore those shirts for 2 years and didn't do laundry. That's a story. My favorite song to play with Bent Knee, I really enjoy playing Time Deer for whatever reason. I guess it's because I can jump around a lot, and it's a very active part, and I'm pretty much playing the whole time. That's a fun song to play. Hold Me In's really fun. Lots of good jumps in that one. Thanks for the questions. And Captain Dan 21. Hello, Ben. Are there any songs with no lyrics that move you or impact you more than songs with lyrics? Also, can you give us a quick freestyle rap? I'll leave the subject matter up to you. I just want to see you rap under pressure. Thanks. Well, I really love Shostakovich's First Violin Concerto, Movement 3. That moves me in ways that, it's hard to even describe. So, if you hear the recording, that is, I'll pull it up here and show you what it looks like so you can find it, because there is a lot of different recordings of that piece. Going to my playlists here. Alright, here it is. It's Violin Concerto number 1. It's going to focus in a second, by Shostakovich, and this is the album art. And now there was more to that question. There's freestyle rapping. So let's see. Okay, the key for this, I think, is you really have to relax and just let the words flow. Beneath the trees, eyes above me, hands like leaves, leaves that plead to the sky, plead to the sky, the sky. My fingers are held into a heart shape, the heart that emanates, the light that prays, the sand that waits, the beach that's sudden, the sudden beach, the water washing above, washing, and I should use a beat, right? So let's see if I can pull up a beat, because I'm just kind of free poeming, which isn't as good. I'm gonna pull up a beat here. Let's see. Hip hop beat. Hip 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 beat. Hip hop beat. Let's try it. Alright, let's hope.
Your small business means more than business.
Get through this commercial here. 11 seconds of commercial. Yikes.
And technology
Okay, this is Next Level Freestyle Trap Beat Free Rap Hip Hop Instrumental by Q+A. Alright. Let's do it. Okay. In the garden I walk, I wait and I talk, I spit when I speak and my mouth is up, full of balloon pus and cud and growls. I'm like the cow that never yells but howls. I wait moonlight, I wait till the dawn. I wait for everyone to turn their lights on. They see me in the street, I've got the powder in my walking wood in my teeth, my barley brown. My fingers and someone near me letting it out. Okay, let's see. I really gotta relax. Alright. There's garbage everywhere, 'cause the wind blows through. If it's happening there, then it's happening to you. It's not an isolated place. We're all part of one giant Mother Nature face. My allergies are a sign that times change. They remind me that I was once in a better place, but where I'm going is not in... There's some good stuff in there, right? But that's me trying. That's legit. Trying for real. You know, it's just like anything, right? If you want to get better at it, you have to practice, and I don't really practice that, but I want to, and so I like this question a lot. I think you just have to accept that, like, you have to, like, be like, oh, wow, there were good moments, and focus on those, and be like, hey, that whole thing about us all being from the same face, and, like, the wind blows trash, so if you put your trash over there, it'll still get to you. That was pretty good. Alright, Seth Siebel asks, hey there Ben, do you have any advice for starting Blender? Thanks for your advice in the last one. Well, Blender is so cool. It's so cool, and it's very confusing working on 3D at first. So, I recommend a couple things. First of all, if you're using a laptop, you just gotta make sure you got your preferences right. There's an option in preferences to emulate 3-button mouse. You've got to get that set up. It's very intimidating just opening Blender on a laptop for the first time, because it's just navigating and everything just seems not quite right. You're watching some tutorial, they're shredding, and it's like, how are they moving through this space so fast? How are they like controlling things like so quickly? And there's like, you need to emulate the number pad, and you need to emulate a 3-button mouse, and then the laptop starts to work like it's supposed to. That's just a big barrier with Blender in the first place, is just like knowing how to click on stuff and how to move around the viewport. So rather than making like big goals initially with Blender, I would just say get used to looking at the cube. When you open it up, there's a default cube. Get used to looking at it, zooming in, grabbing it, moving it, twirling it, doing all these things. Like rotate is a thing, scale is a thing, and grab G, hitting G on the keyboard, moving it around is a big deal. That's a huge deal, and it's like awkward at first, and you get used to looking at the 3D object. Once you're used to like controlling the viewport and looking around, things get a lot easier. Another thing is, it works better on PCs with like okay graphics cards to good ones than it does on Macs, in my experience. It's good to get a PC laptop in general, because you can upgrade them, and Apple is really that we've gotten used to this idea that it's normal to buy a $2,000 computer once every 3 or 4 years. Like, I think that's just absurd. And AppleCare is not good for the money. Like, I was using Apple for so long, and man, PC is a much better thing for consumers. Like, it's way less about superficial qualities. I mean, everything that's hard about PCs is just because they make it so you're not pigeonholed into their expensive stuff that breaks every 3 or 4 years. Like, PC stuff that breaks, you can replace little bits of it, and then you don't have to, and you can upgrade things, and you don't have to like keep buying a whole new laptop. And then in the first place, the laptops are cheaper. So I'm a spoiled guy, and I bought a $2,000 PC laptop instead of getting a new Apple laptop. The Apple laptop would have cost like almost $3,000, but the specs I have in this $2,000 laptop are beyond the $3,000 Apple and run Blender amazingly. But you don't even need a $2,000 PC to run Blender. And you can use a Mac to run Blender, but it's just like, it's just frustrating that like Apple is so expensive and doesn't perform in this way. But yeah, I mean, it helps. Yeah, but that shouldn't stop you. But like, Blender is worth the learning curve, and also there's just so many tutorials. So like, if you find a getting started series, it's good to go in like find someone who gives you an order of events, like a series, and go in series of like starting from scratch and ending up with something. There's a lot of good tutorials, but that thing about like just getting used to moving around the viewport is really big. Nicholas Petrie asks, "Hey Ben, do you have a favorite guitar? And are there any models you'd someday like to own, or are you quite happy with what you've got?" I'm fortunate that younger me afforded the dream guitar and bass. It's nice to have fancy things, but now I'm in my mid-30s, I don't tend to place the same importance on gear. Easy to say when you already have nice stuff, I guess, but it's funny how your perspective changes as you grow. Thanks as always, your most recent YouTube video was something really special. Well, thank you. Yeah, my favorite guitar is the new Squier I got. That it's like, I don't even know what it's called. It's like a Strat, a modern Strat or something. That it was like $400 and has a whammy bar. It sounds really good. It's the black and white one that you might have seen in my Ben Show 3 video at the beginning. At least it's there, and I don't remember where else I've played it, but it's good. And I don't, I'm a little conflicted because I feel like you shouldn't spend a crazy amount on instruments, like on guitars, because they're really good when they don't have to cost very much to be really good. But I respect the people who make really good guitars because they make them themselves, they make them by hand. And my really cheap guitars are probably made in part by slave labor. I'm not positive about that, but the price point and the quality make me think that maybe because they're so good and so cheap that they probably are manufactured at least by low-wage, workers. And I'm speculating on that. But it definitely is a downside to not getting the fancy stuff, and it's raining now. I'll see you inside. Alright, well, it stopped raining, so I really wanted to film outside today because it gets so hot in my room. Let's see. We can get the light nice. Wow, got it. There we go. Alright. So yeah, my favorite guitar is the one I have, that black Squier. Is really good. And I also had a thing where having like a dream guitar, I think you just have to have one that includes the features of the music you like to listen to. So if you really like Steve Vai, then it's good to have like an Ibanez with a whammy bar so you can play that stuff. And if you really like Stratty sounds, then helps to have a Strat of some sort. But it's hard to get too excited for me about any gear right now. When I went to NAMM, I got like way gear crazy. It's just kind of like an idea that gets in your head. Like the gear is important. It really is, like they say, gas, the gear acquisition syndrome. It really does feel like something that comes over you. You get the bad gas. I'm glad you liked the new video. It's one of my favorites I've ever done. Patrick Milligan. Hey Ben, as someone who has toured a reasonable amount, have you found any particularly enjoyable places to visit? Do you feel like your experience is too transient to get a good impression? Well, I definitely had an amazing time in Budapest. We had a day off in Budapest, and there's a lot of good vegan food, and it was really pretty. And yeah, I have a really positive view on Budapest. I really like spending time in the Pacific Northwest of the US because the trees are cool. You get the best trees there, and really great food all over now. Back when I started touring in the US, the best food was usually like on the West Coast, I found, or like New York, but way too expensive. But now there's like great food everywhere. Pretty much any town you can find great food. Europe though has the best bread that I've had. Just in general, everywhere you go, the bread's better in Europe. And the tomatoes are better in Italy. So we went to Milan before I was vegan. I had pizza there, and I know Milan's not like the pizza place, but I mean it is. It's so good. The pizza was so good. I really think, when I think of places, I think of the food I ate there is probably the single most important factor in whether I love the place or not. Because I do have a pretty superficial time in the places. I don't learn that much about them besides where we ate. But I love to eat. Declan Brown asks, "Hey Ben, thanks for making videos. I find your videos very inspiring and a joy to watch. I'm still making my way through the live stream archive, so hopefully these questions are fresh for you. How do you approach making albums? What comes first? How do you handle the making things process in regards to making things you care about and feel good enough about to put out into the world regularly?" So, usually with albums, before I make an album, I'll start by making a really cool song. Like, it'll just kind of happen. I'll be writing songs, and then one that has some kind of quality to it, where I'm like, oh, I could make an album from that. That could be like the first track or the final track. Things like that, like, get me real ready to make an album. I definitely have periods where I'm like trying to write, and therefore trying to come up with an album or an EP, but like, I don't write the album unless there's like a track that makes me think, oh, okay, there's a vision for a whole thing now. At least I have a feeling that if I kept writing in this style, I could make an album. For Jelly Mound, I wrote, which is one of my solo albums, I wrote like the first song, and then I was like, wow, this way of arranging and the vibe here, I really want to make a whole album like this. And making things that I care about and feel good enough about to put out into the world comes from a lot of experience releasing a lot of music. I've released a lot of music, and a fair amount of it I don't like anymore. But it's really hard to predict what other people are gonna like, and I saw something in that music back when I made it. That's why I liked it back then, and then I put it out. So it's reasonable to assume that other people will see in it what I saw in it, and will like it for those reasons, even if I myself have moved on. And so, I think that it's important to, if you like something, kinda, and you think, I'm curious, you should put it out. And the stakes are pretty low for putting out releases now. If you put something out and no one really vibes with it, it will definitely not like be seen by tons and tons of people or heard by tons and tons of people. It'll just kind of be forgotten. But if you make something that does vibe with tons and tons of people, well then that's all anyone pays attention to. So it's, you can make great music and still no one notices it. That happens all the time. But if you make something bad, it's not really likely to ruin your reputation or something. And it's not very likely that people will even notice, unless you're promoting it in such a way that is destructive. Like if you're like personally like calling and texting everyone you know, like, you have to check out my new single, even if you haven't talked to them in a long time, then it's like, you can only do that once. And it's not good to be like, this is the album that's gonna make or break me, because I think it's not like that. I don't think that's how it works anymore. I don't think one album determines anyone's career. Even if you have a really successful album, that could be a big foot in the door, and that can open up a lot of things. But you make it, your next album's not that successful. It's like, well, kind of back to square one in some ways, but also not. Like, also, it's just depends how you're looking at it, and there's lots of unhealthy ways to look at it, which are some of the most common. But it's more about the practice of putting things out than it is about being adored by hundreds of thousands of people. And it's something I can say because, I've experienced a lot of growth since I started making music in terms of my audience, and I really like that growth. That feels great. But I cannot draw a straight line between, like, once I started doing this, I started succeeding. Like, I can't like point to something I did and then be like, and that's what did it, because I've been doing the same thing the whole time. I've been making albums since I was in like 9th grade, since like 2004 or 5. I've been making albums, and they are like, especially those first ones are really bad and no one can even hear them. But then like I made like more than 20, and the point is just like, none of them like were my big break. I haven't had a big break besides maybe Adam Neely having a big break. That maybe is my big break, is that one of my friends from school had a big break and we were collaborating, and I like, he had a lot of attention and I got some of it. I mean that, but like, like it's like, I'm really glad that happened, but that has never been the point, ever. So I recommend releasing your music often. And feeling good about it is something that you almost have to practice. Thank you for your questions, and welcome, and I hope you like the live streams. Worsty asks, hi Ben, do you practice any somewhat formal form of meditation? Are there any general hearing exercises you recommend, especially ones useful for mixing? Hope you're good, thanks for doing this. There's this book called Harmonic Experience by W.A. Matthew that is great as an ear training theory, kind of like all in one, like it's ear training and theory in one, and it's very listening oriented, and I think it would really help with mixing because it helps you really zoom in on timbre and kind of embody it, like internalize it through your voice and stuff. So I would say that book is worth reading, and reading slowly and taking in, like, and spending a long time on just like a couple pages. And then that is also the meditation, because the stuff in that book is really meditative. I'm not, I think meditation's great. It's definitely helped a lot of people, and it's definitely like a great thing. For me, I think it's actually not good, and that's just what I'm saying now, and I'll probably change my mind. But for me, it's like, okay, it's time to think about nothing, but you will think about lots of things, and the idea is to accept that you're going to think about lots of things and just be there. And I find that sort of like going into it knowing I'm going to fail thing makes me look at myself as like someone with a short attention span or something, but I have a really long attention span. For certain things, I work really hard for a long time on lots of things till they're done, and that's meditative. So I think it's like, I don't know, there's something about me and meditation that don't vibe right now, but I don't want to put that on anyone else because it's hugely helpful for a lot of my friends. And the last question of the month comes from Pedro T. Hi Ben, thanks for doing this again. You talk a lot about not getting too attached to ideas and letting them grow into something else. And that's something I find really interesting. How do you balance that with having a strong vision for a song? Sometimes my songs change completely from what I imagined them. I'm not sure if it's for the better or if it's just because I didn't know how to get to what I first intended. It's such a great question because I do think I do think that we get a little bit too infatuated with our own ideas, like as if they're really ours. And then we miss the forest for the trees in a way, because once we start putting those ideas out, it cascades into many ideas. And then you've got some ideas that don't live in your head anymore. Once that cascade happens, you're hearing a bunch of things that are actually happening around you. And you can choose to ignore those ideas in favor of the one in your head, or you can grab them and see the one in your head as like the startup sequence for those. I like doing that. I like saying my brain is fine, but it's better when I'm using it in this reactive way rather than in a all-in-one way where everything is happening in my head in advance, and then I'm just using the outside world to convey that. That's, to me, that's overrating my head, overrating my ideas, as opposed to what we're really good at as humans isn't necessarily having amazing ideas, but we're really good at finding patterns. And that's a broad statement. We have lots of great ideas, but we can find patterns in the natural world or in whatever is around us. And finding those patterns, those are the ideas that happen fast, that become albums. Being oh, actually this sound and that sound, and oh, I meant to play a chord that's like this, but it's actually like this now, and that's good because, or that's bad because, and then letting that inform you. Now, you'll never know what's better, what you first intended or what you ended up with. That's almost like a way to torture yourself, trying to quantify everything that could have been. There's only what is, and practically speaking, at least with music making, it's whatever you ended up with, you can't be it could have been so much more, or maybe it could have been less, or it's, you more have to trust the process as the solid thing, and the idea is almost arbitrary. It's engaging in the process is that, your idea should be the process. What's your process? What's your process going to be? And then you're just responding to what happened when you did that process. So having an idea and starting with that is great, and it'll show you lots of other things, and it's nice to give those things a shot. And that was a great Q&A, I think. It's nice to do it outside. It gets too hot in my room. Alright. Thank you for just asking me questions. It makes me feel really good, and you're saying nice things to me too, and that, you know, I could act like I don't care about what other people think, but I do. And I'll see you next month. We'll have videos and lots of stuff's coming out. I'm in a lot of other people's stuff right now, and I just did a big thing with a big collaboration with Tim Heidecker, Doug Lucenhop, and Vic Berger for a thing they're gonna release, and it was really cool, and you'll see that soon. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye.